Hello smart viewers, welcome back to BNews TV Face to Face. Today we have a really special guest coming from California and now is here in BNews TV. Please welcome Mr. Bruno. How are you, Mr. Bruno?
Good,
it's really nice to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, coming from California, it's a really interesting place, and from what I know that you live near Silicon Valley, which is really interesting. So, what makes you come here first?
Well, I'm part of what's called the English Language Fellow Program. That is a program funded by the American government, and it's operated by Georgetown University. And so what the program does is it sends teachers, American teachers around the world, to go to universities and engage with people and learn more about the culture and teach English.
Okay, and I'm really interested in how you get into this education sphere. At first, how interested are you in this education, and how firstly you come into this education section? What drives you?
Yeah, that's a big question. There was never a plan to go into education, so it wasn't as if when I was young I thought, oh, I'm going to go teach one day. But I think what happens is you just fall into things. So when I was young, one of my first jobs was teaching immigrants at a janitorial company, basic English words. So that was like a part-time job. And then also when I was at the university, I would tutor students in math, physics, and chemistry. And so the idea of helping people learn was something that I always enjoyed. And there comes a point in life where you think about things that made you happy. And I always went back to those experiences of helping people and meeting new people was something that I had always enjoyed. And so it just happened to be a good transition for me to, once I finished my professional career, so to speak, go into teaching.
Okay, so before you came into this education section, you firstly in another professional background, which is the sales and marketing. Is that right? And
right.
How does it help you? It means that you have a multidisciplinary experiences, and I'm really sure it's really helping in this education sector for you.
Yeah. So my background is engineering. I studied electrical engineering at the University of Southern California. And to be honest with you, I wasn't a great student, but I was good enough, back then. But I also knew that I wasn't going to pursue an engineering career of sitting at a desk and programming or, debugging motherboards or things like this. So I ended up going into technical sales engineering. So one of my first jobs was I was a technical sales engineer, and I would visit customers and talk to them about different microprocessors, microcontrollers, flash memories, things that would help engineers make their products. So when you're working in technology and in high tech, you meet a lot of people from different countries. Sometimes you're involved in opportunities that go beyond Silicon Valley, so meaning you would have to interface with a team in Singapore or a team in Hong Kong. And so that international business aspect, I think, is something that helps me now as a teacher, as we have a lot of students learning English to try to get good jobs.
So dealing with a lot of people is an easy thing for you because you are used to it.
Right, dealing with people from different cultures is something that I've been used to for a very long time.
Yes, it's really interesting. So, having experienced the managerial system of the school management in America, and now you come here to experience the education system of Indonesia, what comparison do you think does exist? How would you compare it?
Can you rephrase that question? So how would I compare?
How would you compare the managerial system of education in America versus in Indonesia?
Okay, so that's a difficult question. I used to run vocational schools, so I ran a vocational school in California. And when you're managing a school, you have an obligation to provide the best quality of education for the students. And I think one thing that I see, and I can only speak about BNUS, is that BNUS is also very student-centered, wanting to make sure that the students are learning new things, new ideas. I went into a class and I saw teachers practicing mind mapping. So, a lot of different teaching methodologies that will help the students succeed in their job opportunities.
Okay, so about this teaching, probably you can share some with us about what are the things that is probably can be the challenge when you're in this education section.
Yeah, so part of the challenge is, for example, actually getting students to speak English, right?
Really?
Because they go back to their native language when they're in the class, even though they're in an English classroom. And I think what they have to realize is that our time together may last 100 minutes in a session, right, or in a day or in a class. And so to make, to take advantage of the time that we have together so that they can practice speaking, in the classroom. But this is a similar challenge that we have many times in the U.S. as well. When we have, for example, groups of students from the same countries, it's only natural that they want to speak their own language in the classroom. But so that's a challenge, across the world to get students to practice English.
Okay, so you were here. You were focusing on the English literature, is that right? On the English literature, or is there any other?
Yeah, so right now I'm teaching an English access course, so helping students who are preparing to take the TOEFL, because they may want to travel overseas, go to university overseas. And then I teach a class in linguistics, language, and literature. Yeah, that's another one that we do. And also an intercommunication skills class.
Intercommunication skill class, okay. That's really interesting. And okay, I would like, talking about the English literature, it's really interesting to see how student perception towards that major, because with my observation, like 4 to 5 of my friends would say that I took English literature because I think that's the easiest one. I took it because I want to be good in English, that I can learn grammar well. It is more than that, and I think it's part of the challenges that you face as well. But what is your opinion about that?
So what you're saying is you think that there's students taking the English literature course just because it's the easiest path to get a job, or?
They will say it's the easiest one.
It's the easiest one.
Easiest one. That's why they do it. They would have take the easy major. That's what they say.
And at the end, people just have to know why they're choosing the major that they choose. But again, these are not problems that are specific to Indonesia. We have these kinds of problems in the U.S. too, where students sometimes choose the easiest major. Maybe they're motivated by their grade point average, or maybe they just don't know what to do. And so they go the path of least resistance.
Okay, it's really interesting. And now we're going to the commercial break, so stay tuned with us and Face to Face with Mr. Bruno. Hello, smart viewers. Welcome back to Face to Face. So, we've reached to the topic about this management. How we talk about it's in Indonesia, and about the student perception. So, for you, it's totally okay, because some students will take this major as part of their pursuit of in the future. So, it's totally fine if they think that it's the easiest one that they can get, while ignoring the deeper part. What do you think about it?
Yeah, but it's always important, though, to make sure that students are choosing majors that they're interested in. I mean, if you think about Steve Jobs, one of the first classes that Steve Jobs took, as far as I know, was calligraphy, so the writing of letters, and that served as an inspiration for him to go on and develop the word processing tools. So at the end, I don't think it's as much. You just have to be interested in what you do, because I think that things change so rapidly nowadays that even if, for example, you chose to study engineering, unless you keep up with studying engineering and getting updated on new programming techniques, your skills probably going to be obsolete within 2 to 3 years. So I think we live in a time now where you have to constantly educate yourself, otherwise you're just going to fall behind. And it's less about the major, but more about just keep studying something to make yourself valuable to society, and to be able to find a job that's meaningful to you.
Okay. Talking about that, how like in English literature, they have the business streaming. Do you think it's like contradicting to the essence of English literature itself? Like they have this business streaming and they have writing, but business. What do you think about that? Isn't
so
that
the English literature major then has a
specialization
in business.
in business?
Okay. And so what's the question then?
Don't you think it's like contradicting with the major itself? Because it's English literature, as far as we know that English literature is talking about the literature itself. How can you dig deeper to one book or analyze something, semiotic, discourse, things like that?
Right. I mean, you do have a point, Barry, but I think it's also important for students to branch out in different aspects of English. And I don't think there's anything harmful in students studying, English for business writing. But I mean, if the student's main goal is to study literature, then I'm assuming that most of the courses would be in literature. But to take an elective here or there in another track, I don't think it's harmful. It might give you a different perspective on other things.
Okay, and talking about the system itself, we can see that now a lot of lecture comes from the industrial practitioner. Yeah. They come from the industrial practitioner, and there are some concerns that how can they deal with the student? They know how to do it outside, but will they be able to face the student? Like, those are the concerns. So what do you think about it? Is that about the balance, or do you think it's okay?
So you're saying that whether it's a industry-based teacher versus a research-based, yeah, you need both. You need both. So if we go back to the business aspect, I mean, you have, and here's something that happens many times, is that many teachers and universities actually enjoy doing research more than they enjoy teaching. And so what happens is that when they go into a classroom, they may not be as effective a teacher as someone who comes from the industry. So at times you just need that balance. Okay? You need the person who's doing research, finding out new techniques, new distribution models, marketing models. And you also need the person who's actually been in the field who can tell the students, here's what it's like in the real world. Here's what you might face when you get hired and get your first job. So having that balance, I think, is necessary and very useful for students.
Okay, I have one more something that I'm interested at. You having lived in the Silicon Valley, do you think it influences your work culture or something about how you think and how it affects your system of management in the school and in teaching as well? Do you think it impacts you in some ways?
Well, one thing about the entrepreneurial spirit of Silicon Valley is that the people that live there are huge risk takers. So they're not afraid to fail. Okay, and in many cultures, failure is a dirty word. Yeah. Like, don't fail. But what you'll find many times in Silicon Valley is that failing is a badge of honor. It's, oh wow, you tried to start your own company, oh, and it didn't work. What happened? I mean, there's a curiosity, and it then ties with, you know what, I may have failed this time, but I've gained the experience so that if I try this again, I'm going to be better. And so there's that mentality about Silicon Valley where it just produces, you know, new hit startup after hit startup because it's, again, it's a culture that's not afraid to make mistakes. So when you bring that into education management or you bring that into specifically English language learning, it's the same with the students. You can't be afraid to fail because when you learn any kind of language, you have to do it by making mistakes. It's a feedback loop. You make a mistake, a teacher corrects you, it comes back, improve it until you get better. And then from an education management perspective also, you know, you have to go ahead and plan what you think a curriculum down the road might be. Because again, if we're talking about, you know, society's moving very quickly nowadays, then the courses that you teach today or that you have today will probably be obsolete in a couple of years. So there's that constant also where schools have to view themselves also like entrepreneurs. You know, what can we do? What risks can we take in coursework and initiatives with partnerships with other companies that will help our students become better?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And now we're going to the commercial break again, and we're gonna meet again in the last segment. So stay tuned on the Venus TV Face to Face, and we'll see you again in the next segment. Hello smart viewers, welcome back to Face, and we've reached the last segment with Mr. Bruno. So, Mr. Bruno, in this segment, we're gonna do the topical segment. So, we've collected the questions from your students about what are they curious about you.
Oh no. Maybe this is where I leave the show.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so one of the question is, what would you do if you win a lottery?
All right, so if I won the lottery,
Yeah.
you know, I'd like to buy a soccer team, a football team. Yeah.
Okay. Why? Why soccer team?
You know, I grew up in Spain playing soccer, so it's something that's always been in me. And yeah, it's if I could, not a big soccer team in Spain or England or anything like that, but you know, maybe in South America, a second division team, just for the fun of having a soccer team.
Okay, that's interesting. And then some students also ask you about why do you leave US for BINUS? Like, I think we have answered that one.
Right. So I'm here at BINUS as part of, as I mentioned, a program funded by the U.S. government, who works closely with Georgetown University to coordinate this program.
Okay, and also there's there's another question about how do you feel about Indonesia?
You know,
Yeah.
I've been here now for a little bit over a month, and I must say that this is a wonderful country. And it's not because I've done a lot of sightseeing, but it is because you know, everyone that I've met has been extremely helpful to me. So, you know, some of Pak Steven, Ibu Diana, Ibu Jessie, Ibu Wiwik, you know, Pak Chomi. I mean, all these people have made sure that in my first month or so, you know, that everything's going well for me. So I'm extremely thankful, you know. And also the students have been great. So.
How about the food?
The food also has been terrific. I think I'm eating fried rice every day. It's probably time to diversify to a new dish, but I guess I like that dish so much that, that I keep going back to it.
Seems like you have no problem with adapting to this new culture, huh?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, that's really interesting. So, what is your vision? Do you have anything to say or a vision to the viewers regarding this management thing, or probably to the students itself? What should we have in mind about this culture? Do you think there should be a mindset shift about what we are thinking right now that's really important to be changed?
A mindset shift in what way? Or what are some problems that you see?
Okay, one of the problem is this. Here, when you fail, people will see you in a bad way.
Right.
And from what you said, that the cultural value of what you learned in Silicon Valley has taught you that failure is your honor of badge, and it's really irrelevant to today's world, because like so many people fail, but they don't want to try it again. And how you apply it to the education system is really good. But is there anything like your vision that's something that can be improved?
Oh, that's a tough question, Barry. You know, these are mindsets, right? Now, one of the positive things about BNews, though, is it does have that innovation in it, right? As I walk through the campus, you know, I see all this great technology that we have in the classrooms. You know, I read posters about case competitions. So, you know, I think that these things take time, right? But I think that the next coming generation is probably the one that's got to make that shift into, you know, helping people be less afraid to fail. But of course, you also need the systems in place to allow people to fail, right? Because, you know, one thing about America is that when you fail, it's a little bit easier to get back up. Yeah, there are other opportunities waiting for you. And I guess I don't know enough of you know, the situation in Indonesia to know whether that's true here or not. Yeah, but these things take time.
So it's also the system that should be a platform for people to develop. Okay.
And you're going to need a couple success stories, right? Because what's going to happen is that if you create an entrepreneurial spirit in Indonesia and you get a couple of people that set up big companies, then that's going to motivate the generation behind it to also, you know, try to do their own business at some stage, right? So it'll be a ripple effect. You need 1, 2, 3 people to be successful, and then these people will be, you know, viewed in a heroic light of, wow, I'd like to be like him or like her and start my own company.
Okay, so it's a role model.
That's right.
A role model is needed here. But what do you think? What do you think us as the youth can trigger this one person to become a role model, or probably ourselves to become this role model? How can we move them, like, to become more risk-taking, or?
Well, I think that's also part of the job of the school. I mean, the school has to create that environment where students can experiment, right? And as I mentioned, you know, when I see things like case competitions, that's great. That's giving the student the ability to, you know, examine a company and deliver, you know, talk about a case study, or, you know, the entrepreneurship club, where I think that there's even a club where you get some funding if your business plan is good. You get some money to try to develop your own company, right? So I think these are initiatives that are good for universities to allow students to be a part of.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm afraid that we have reached the end of our show today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And also thank you so much for the BNews TV crew and all of the people who helped to make this show happen. So see you again in the next face-to-face in the same time and place every Friday, 1:30 p.m.